So in this video, we are going to be discussing word problems and how to solve using these trig ratios. There are two important things you need to understand. These two terms, angle of depression and angle of elevation, are used constantly when talking about right triangle word problems. So the important thing that you need to understand is that you always have this horizontal line, and it is always at basically your eye level, or they may say like at a spot on the ground, but it is always a horizontal line. So you can always think about, so the way to think about this is if you were looking straight ahead, that is your eye level. If you were to look up from that, that is where you get this angle of elevation. So when you look up, that is elevating. And when you look down, that is depression. So when, again, you start by looking straight ahead, and if you move your head up or down, tells you what that angle is going to look like. So this is just a picture demonstrating the differences of angles of depressions and angles of elevation. The nice thing is that these two angles that you see right here are actually congruent to one another because the eye levels of both are actually parallel. So there's a couple ways of thinking about these problems, but we're going to always be thinking about them as a point of view of whoever is talking. So our first example says, from a point on the edge of a cliff 150 feet high, you see a boat at an angle of depression of 32 degrees. How far from the cliff is the boat? So we can look at that. So again, the first thing that you should do is to sketch a picture. So, and I mean sketch like an actual picture. So here we go. Here is my cliff. We got a little sea going on, and here is my lovely boat. So it says that at the point of the edge of the cliff, so here is the point at the edge of the cliff, we have an angle of depression. So anytime I see the words angle of depression or angle of elevation, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a horizontal line. So it said depression, so that means that our angle is going to be going down from here. So here is the angle to the boat. So this right here is the angle of 32 degrees. So the angle that is formed between that horizontal line and that angle of you going down. So other pieces of information that we are told is that the cliff is 150 feet, and I am trying to find the distance from the cliff and the boat. So I'm trying to solve for that x right there. So here we have a couple things going on. I need to be able to figure out and solve at least one of these triangles. So there's a couple things that we can actually change with these triangles. So we also know that if I were to box this triangle over here, it's also going to be the same height of 150 because I just basically am making a rectangle. So that means that this distance is also x. So I can use this right triangle. The other thing I could have done is I could have just changed this 32 to be over here because, like I said earlier, these are interior angles of a through parallel lines. So these are your interior transversal angles. So those are congruent. So as you can see, I have two different triangles that I have formed. Both are totally acceptable. So I'm trying to solve for this x. I know this angle. So if I'm looking at this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to label the words opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse along all of this. So I know that I'm going to look at this top one. So I'm going to look at this top triangle that I've made. I know that this x is going to be the adjacent side because it's touching the angle that I know. This 150 would then be the opposite. and the opposite side is always of the 90 is your hypotenuse. So the long leg is your hypotenuse. So I have an angle, I am looking for the adjacent side, and I know the opposite. So I'm going to think of the trig ratios that use the words that I know and am looking for. So I know opposite and I'm looking for adjacent, so I'm going to use tangent, because the tangent of an angle equals the opposite over the adjacent. So we can fill in these pieces of information because each and every one of these is just a variable. Theta is a variable, opposite side is a variable, and adjacent is a variable. And we know all those. So let's go and find those answers. So this is going to be the tangent of 32 degrees, and that's going to equal 150 feet over x. So I need to solve for x. So how do I solve for x? Well, x is currently in the denominator of that problem, so I need to start by multiplying both sides by that x to move it up into a numerator. So on the right side, these x's would then cancel. So on the left, I'm left with x times the tangent of 32 degrees equals 150 feet. So the last thing, again, I'm solving for that x, and it's being multiplied by something, so that means the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide both sides by this tangent of 32. So the left side cancels, and the right side is just something you are going to be putting into your calculator at this point. So you are going to do 150 divided by the tangent of 32 degrees. So that means you need to make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. And for the most part, it is standard to be in degree mode. Otherwise, look in the mode feature. If you have any questions on that, we can look at it in class. So I'm going to put into my calculator 150 divided by the tangent of 32. And I get out 240.05 feet. So we can just round that and say 240 feet, because I was given units to the unit place of the feet, so I'm just going to keep my answer in the unit place as well. So this is how you are going to be solving all of these word problems. You set up a picture, you set up the trig ratio that involves one of your, or two of your knowns, basically your angle and then one of the sides, and then whichever trig ratio also has in it the thing you're looking for. And you're going to be sticking with the main three trig ratios because that is what's in your calculator. Some calculators do have cosecant, secant, and cotangent, but for the most part, they do not. So how about you guys try one of these problems, set it up, draw yourself a picture, and then figure out which trig ratio will help you solve this. You were looking for how tall the tree is. So pause the video. So you should have gotten that the tree is 150 feet tall. Again, I rounded that number because I was only given the precision of to the nearest foot for the information, so that is why I rounded to the nearest foot.